Hello, everyone. Welcome again to the Buckspace podcast. This is episode 5. I'm Kumar, and with me today we again have Rohini. Today we're going to be talking a little bit on fermented foods, and who better than Rohini to have on the podcast than to talk about fermented foods. So, Rohini, when did you discover fermented foods? I know we've been having a lot since childhood, but to know actually this is what is called fermented foods. When did you first discover this, and your experience with it in general?
Sure. When I was a kid, the only fermented foods that we were aware of it is my mother making idlis and dosa batters. That is what we thought was a fermented food. We didn't know something beyond that actually existed. Till my graduation level, I had taken microbiology as one of the subject, and we were supposed to create or make wine from the scratch. So all of us were very excited that this is the first time we are doing something. We are doing something with alcohol. Although that develops much later as the fermentation progresses, but we were all very excited to do it. And we had a good lab wherein we got the ingredients and we made the things from the scratch. We used a grape wine. That is what we made. The most interesting thing here is we were not allowed to taste it. The reason being that the rule there in the college was you have to taste the wine which has been made out by our seniors. So it's like an year-old wine. So we got even more excited, saying that, okay, by the way, we are having alcohol today. So that was the thing. But to be very honest, it tasted very bad. It was not at all good. But yeah, that was the time when we actually came across, fermenting fruits. We understood how fermentation process works, which are the beneficial organisms that grow in, a fermented product, and how good it is for our gut and for our overall health. So yes, that is my experience. That is when I started to understand that we can do a lot of fermentation with different food items. Need not be just fruits. We can even ferment the cereals. We can ferment the different types of juices and stuff. And yes, from then on, I started experimenting more and more on this. I think you would also have something similar experiences, Kumar.
Very similar. I mean, idli dosa batter. Mom used to grind it, leave it overnight, and then next morning it would have overflown everywhere, and you have to clean it and all of that. And but she used to insist that for fermentation to happen, you have to mix it with your hand, and not stir it with a ladle. I used to wonder why that is there, and now reading a lot more about the skin microbiome, trying to see if there's this connection between the skin microbiome and fermentation of those batters.
Oh, that's very interesting. So you mean to say some microbes from our skin can enter the...
I'm not saying anything right now. This is an idea that I want to research, and I want to see if there's any truth to it or not. But it's been many years of tradition where you mix it with hand. Whether that is because there was no spoon or ladle at that point of time, or measuring with a hand is better. Though my question to anybody making curds at one point of time was where did the first curd come from? Because you take yesterday's curd and you put it into today's milk to make it. So how did the first person actually make curd? I used to ask this as a kid, and it's been a lifelong journey as to find out how do you do curds without a starter culture kind of thing, or where do you get the starter culture? And there was a Kannada podcast that I was listening to, and they were explaining how rain at a certain month in a certain place, and if you catch it and you mix it with milk, it'll that is the best form of curds that can do.
Wow.
I will try and fish out the link and share it with the audience as well as.
That would be a very interesting information, actually. Usually to my clients, who are trying to do a curd from a dairy-free milk, say peanut milk or something, they also used to ask the same thing, that how do I get the starter for making the curds? And that is when we realized that a green chili works as a very good starter in, setting up a peanut curd. So I thought maybe that is what people used to do in earlier times also. Maybe use these chilies or some other vegetable source as a starter for setting the curd, but this is something completely new.
Correct. It was because till that time, what I used to do is I used to buy any probiotic and open it into the milk. I take the capsule and open it into the milk, kind of thing. So that and I didn't know there was a difference between curd and yogurt till very recently. Apparently, curd has no starter culture, as in no, you don't know the specific organisms that are there in curd. Whereas yogurt, you know exactly which organisms are present. I don't know if this definition is true or not, but this is something that I heard very recently.
Okay, that is very interesting. A lot of us, we do not know the difference actually. So the Greek yogurt that we buy actually has a specific name of the organism written on it, right?
Right.
But when we buy the curd from the dairy, the packet curd actually has no organisms written there. So it is like naturally fermented with the organisms present in the environment, right? So yeah, that is very interesting. So both the curds are good then, right? Because you are trying to get diversity of organisms or these species to the gut. So including both are good then.
Including both seems to be good.
That is great. So, Kumar, since we are talking about the curds and yogurt, we also see a lot of food going bad. And I do remember you mentioning that fermentation is a kind of, a food which has gone bad. Incidentally, because there are a lot of organisms which are multiplying there, right? So, how do we know what is a fermented food, and how do we kind of distinguish between a good ferment and a bad ferment?
Very, very difficult to answer this question. But the thought of this came first to me is when I was visiting a city and they had given me their specialty dish, which translated to spoiled beans. And I asked them, spoiled beans? And they said, it is actually fermented beans. Then I said, why are you calling it for spoiled beans? So they're saying, isn't milk which turns to curd spoiled milk? Yeah. So I said, no, it is fermented milk. So that's when the conversation began as to what is fermentation, what is good fermentation, what is bad fermentation. Fermentation is a process, in which very, very simply at the molecular biology level, microbiology level, a bacteria or a fungus or any microbe is turning one compound to another compound. They in case of milk, they're utilizing lactobacillus and producing something there. So they are just eating and living and replicating and enjoying themselves. So that is the entire process of fermentation. Probiotics are the bacteria which are generally considered as healthy, which does this fermentation. So you tend to have probiotics because you're hoping that the fermentation, a little bit of the probiotic reactions happen in the gut. Prebiotic is the food for the bacteria. So anything that the bacteria eats to produce something that is called prebiotic. And postbiotic is anything that the bacteria or the fungus is actually producing. So that is postbiotic. Again, kind of satellite view definitions. I mean, you can get a little more strict and more nuanced in this, especially when it comes to probiotic supplements. Then it becomes very, very defined as to what is probiotic. So that is what fermentation is all about. And we've been doing fermentation as human civilization. We've been doing fermentations for I don't know many centuries. Even the old religious books, 1 BC, 2 BC, all of them talk about fermented drinks.
It's one way of preserving the food, right?
Correct.
So since there were no refrigerators at that point of time, maybe that was one way how people could preserve certain fruits and vegetables which were not available throughout the season.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's my pet peeve, Rohini. I mean, anywhere and everywhere I go, I keep talking about how refrigeration has actually changed the way we eat stuff, because before refrigeration, any food that we were eating was probably slightly fermented. We would have cooked it, or we would have got it, kept it for some time. There'll be a little bit of fermentation that is happening, even if it's done in the morning and eaten in the evening. I still think there's a little bit of fermentation that would have happened at that point of time. And refrigeration has kind of changed everything. which is why it is one of the reason I hypothesize that the diversity in the gut has come down over the many decades after refrigeration. So, yeah, even for curds, normally what I recommend is don't eat it straight out of the fridge. Keep it out for some time, for for about 15-20 minutes at least. Let the organisms revive a little bit, and then you can have the curds.
Okay, that's interesting because there are a lot of clients who have got back to me saying that when they set the curds freshly and have it at room temperature, they seem to have the digestion acts better. They have a more resilient gut rather than taking a packaged curd and directly from the refrigerator and having it. So I think there is some science involved there which says that maybe the bacteria when they are at their active form can do good to your gut, compared to the bacteria which is like dormant in a low temperature,
Correct.
right?
Yeah. So you were asking me the difference between a good ferment and a bad ferment. I think there is a very thin line between a good diversity of microorganisms in your gut versus an infection.
Huh.
It's balancing that which has become very tricky, and we need to be very very conscious about what we are eating. Anything which is over fermented, again, the definition is very loose about what is over fermentation, but anything which is over fermented could end up being bad for you. Sourdough bread is, wheat that is fermented and you're getting the sourdough bread, but you keep the sourdough bread out for about 2-3 weeks, you'll start getting the fungus on it, right? The yeast on it, which is eating, that could be bad for your gut. And it is only bad for your gut is because in the course of evolution, we've removed that fungus from our natural habitat and eating. We've been eating fresh food for so many decades now, so many decades and centuries now, that it's kind of gone out of our system and we won't be able to process it. So there's a very thin line between that. Anything which is starting to have a smell maybe, and a coloration which is tending to have those blackish spots and all of that, I think is a bad ferment for us right now. And good fermentation is anything which is kind of intermediary, where it still tastes good and smells good, and you feel like having it.
Okay, that's excellent.
Truly, I mean, so right now we have so many fermented foods around us. I mean, people only think about kombucha and kefir, but there's kanji, there's curds, there's so many in Europe, fermented foods, both in India and outside India as well. What is the nutritional significance of fermented food?
Okay, so there are a lot of things, a lot of aspects to this. I would cover only a few main ones, which is very specifically associated with our gut health. One is the bioavailability of nutrients. So we have a lot of anti-nutritional factors which are present in, say, whole grains, the cereals, millets, and so on. What happens is when you ferment them, many of these anti-nutritional factors actually come down, and it helps the nutrients to be more bioavailable, which helps in kind of repairing any sort of leaky gut that a person has. So the fermentation process actually makes the nutrient more bioavailable, which is really good. Otherwise, the other ways of making the nutrient bioavailable would be to like soak it, or to kind of roast it or sprout it. But we never think fermentation as one of the ways of making the nutrients more bioavailable to the body, and this actually is a very good way of doing it. That is one point. Second point is fermentation process helps to reduce certain components in the food which can cause gastric distress. For example, if you take cabbage, so cabbage has sulfur containing compounds, and these are not digested very well by certain people with gut issues, especially those having IBS and IBD, intolerance towards certain food. They cannot digest cabbage at all. But if they take cabbage in the fermented form, say maybe in the form of sauerkraut or kimchi, they are able to digest it better. plus the benefit of adding the right kind of probiotics to the gut. So fermentation actually helps in reducing certain components which can cause more gas and bloating in a person, and this is another benefit which I have seen. The third one is this one was very interesting find, which while interacting with the client. So I had a client from Delhi who was having IBS, both mixed constipation and diarrhea kinds, and he loved beetroot. Beetroot being a food which is high on FODMAP. That means it has high fermentable carbohydrates, with which a person having such gut related issues is not able to digest. And in Delhi, there is this fermented food called as kanji, which is very famous, and it is made with black carrot. So this person, his family actually tried making kanji with beetroot. Okay, so what happens is when you are making kanji from the beetroot, the good organisms present in the kanji water changes these fermentable carbs into acid.
Okay.
So that way the end product has a very low FODMAP quantity, and that way he was able to enjoy beetroot without worrying about his gastric issues. So that is how you can introduce these fermented foods even in people who cannot tolerate a food which is high in FODMAP, and this was a very good example of that. So reducing the FODMAP content of the food, having a lot of postbiotics, as you had mentioned, in these fermented foods help to make our gut more resilient. I've had clients coming and telling me that my gut should be in such a shape that when I have to socialize, I go out and eat something, my gut should be able to handle it. I should not come back having gastric trouble and bloating and stuff. So I said start including these fermented foods, because that is what will make your gut more resilient. It can protect against the pathogen. It maintains the gut barrier integrity. So with all these benefits, the fermented foods actually is a very good way of a long-term, if you're looking at a long-term gut health. So that is how I feel my clients have benefited quite a bit with this fermented food.
So, Roni, this kefir and kombuchas have been gaining so much of popularity in the last few years now. What are your thoughts on them?
So I also got very curious. I wanted to find out, how does it taste, because I've never tasted before. And so I checked on the market, got a few stuffs. But trust me, nothing beats our traditional fermented foods. So that made me to go back and, find out what are the different fermented food options that are available, because we get clients from pan India, right? So people from Assam, people from say Maharashtra side coming and asking what kind of fermented foods can we consume apart from the curd. So that made me to go and find out what are the different foods which are naturally fermented in India. So as you know, kanji is very famous in the north side. When you come to the west side, I came to know that in Rajasthan people prepare something called as kanji with vada. It is called as vada kanji or kanji vada. So they make these small vadas of moong dal and use them to ferment in the water which has a similar composition to kanji in north.
Okay.
But there they add black carrot, and here they add vadas. So that is the difference, and that is very very integral part of their diet. They make it very often, especially during the closer to the winter months, and it is very tasty apparently. So that is one. When you come to the south, you have lots of fermented foods. You have fermented rice, cooked rice which is soaked overnight. You have ragi ambli. You can ferment different millets. Also, a lot of different types of pickles. And in Coorg, apparently, they do fermented bamboo shoots, which I was not aware of. And that is the first time I tasted actually bamboo shoot pickle.
It's very nice.
That is really nice. It's very good. And bamboo shoots are prebiotics in nature, right? So you have a complete bottle of symbiotic with you. So it has good amount of probiotics also, and bamboo shoot itself is a prebiotic, and it's an excellent product. It's very tasty also. So it's not like, you're forcibly trying to pop pills, trying to help your gut, retain a good amount of probiotics. Here you are enjoying that probiotic. You are, making it a part of your daily diet. You're enjoying it. So I'm sure that mental setup also helps in building the gut microbiome, right? So when you're happily eating something, it is more absorbed in your body. It is more attached. That emotions count as well. So that is one thing. And when we go to the Assam, Bihar, Orissa side, that is where again the overnight soaked rice was something which is very popular there. There also have seen bamboo shoots to again to be very popular probiotic food. Also, they have these wild ferns which they use to ferment, and fishes, especially in the Bihar and Orissa side, they have fermented fishes. Even fermented fish sauce, which is very popular there. So I see all these different fermented foods, and I feel why are we not utilizing them? They are like treasures. We can always include them as a part of our diet. The most concerning thing which I see nowadays when it comes to fermented food is trying to do instant fermentation. So we are either adding soda or we are adding some fruit salt to get the quick fermentation process rather than going through the normal stage of fermentation, and that is causing more harm to your body, right? So we do not have good number of microorganisms if the batter is not fermented. If you're doing idli and dosa adding some soda, it is not going to help you. It will cause more harm to your gut rather than have a healing effect. So these are different fermented foods which I have come across. Kefir and kombuchas are good as well because as it has a different strain of probiotics in them. So it would be good if it is accessible for you. If you are able to get it, or you can prepare it at home, that would add a nice diversity with respect to fermented foods. The best fermented food for me is pickles, because you tend to kind of for pickle anything. It could be a pickling of vegetable, it could be a fruit, anything you want you can pickle. Even garlic pickle I have come across, which is very, very tasty. And again, garlic is a prebiotic, so makes for an excellent pickle and good for our gut too. So I want your take on pickling. I mean,
So, brine water fermented vegetables, which is nothing but pickling of vegetables, is supposed to be like really good. I know a couple of doctors in Mangalore region who are treating kids with autism using vegetable fermentation, vegetable pickle fermentation kind of a thing, and they've been getting excellent results. So. In our World of Microbiome conference, also they're going to give a talk on how the fermentation is happening and what are the results that they're getting.
oh, that's interesting.
And we've been having pickling in India, outside India, for so many centuries now, but I think it's become a lot more commercialized. And the pickle that we get is now loaded with salt and vinegar.
Absolutely.
Which is not as good as mildly salted vegetables, which is left overnight without adding any other kind of preservatives to it. The fermentation is far more different in that than all the industrialized fermentation. So pickling is good, and if it's done in the right way, it is really good for the health. And you can pickle anything, right? I mean, you talked about carrot fermentation. I mean, you can pickle any vegetable out there or anything. I mean, I know people who do a lot of fish pickling. There used to be a restaurant a Chinese restaurant in Bangalore, a pretty old one, which unfortunately had to shut down. They used to ferment the meat overnight.
Oh.
And it used to taste really good, but I used to comment that I'm getting a slight kick out of the, out of the food. So I was talking to the owner, and he was telling me about his traditional way of making meat as well. So, and he was calling pickling of meat. That's how he termed it. So, pickling is really good. And I'm not talking about the industrialized bottled pickle that you get in all the supermarkets. I'm talking about what we can make at home, which is really good.
That is really great. And you were talking about the kick out of it. I don't know about getting the kick out of it, but it definitely changes the flavor of the food. For example, if you ferment vegetables and add them as a part of your salad or add it to your salad, it gives such a nice tangy and spicy flavor to the salad. The same way, we have tried, somebody even suggested if you are doing kimchi at home, add kimchi to your sambar. That was the suggestion given. And I'm like, who can add kimchi to sambar?
You haven't tried it. It's amazing.
Yes, that's the feedback I got. I said I should definitely give it a try once to see how it tastes.
Radish is radish. So adding fermented radish to sambar is really good.
See, so there is such a, amalgamation of these cultures where you are making kimchi and adding it to your sambar. It's an excellent thing. So, yes.
So Roni, what I'm getting out of this conversation is we are more and more talking about what we can do at home, and try and avoid buying, large lab manufacturing bottled kind of fermented products. Even kefir and kombucha, if you can do it at home, the quality that you get is going to be much different than any of the bottled products, especially the larger volume ones. Talk a little bit about the fermentation that you can do at home.
Okay, sure. So, the basic ones that we generally do, again, I have come across people who have stopped setting curd at home. I keep encouraging them, please set curd at home. Try to, there are a lot of small machines available nowadays where you can make hung curds out of your curds. Use the hung curds, in making your salad dressing rather than buying, Thousand Islands and mayonnaise and all that stuff. Do your own salad dressing with it. It will be a rich source of probiotic. Apart from that, I have started doing a lot of ferments. One is a ginger ale which I prepared. Yes, this is something similar. This is a ginger bug. So it is like a starter culture.
Okay.
The only three things that you require is sugar, ginger and water.
Oh, nice.
Only three. So it's so simple. So what we do is we keep feeding this with ginger and sugar every day. We keep it alive. So basically this is like my baby. I have to keep feeding it till it is ready to be used. I take a small quantity of this ferment and then I can use that to ferment anything possible. So I can add it to orange juice and get a fermented orange juice. So we as nutritionists, we generally advise don't consume fruit juices, consume fruit as a whole. But here I would like to make an exception, consume fermented fruit juice instead of just a juice, because your fresh fruit juice will have a lot of sugar content in it. Fermentation, make sure that sugar gets converted to acid and the total amount of sugar goes down drastically in the fermented juice. So that is how I have started doing it and now my kids love it. So I have tried fermenting, pomegranate juice, and now we had this jamuns available, right? This was the season. So I had a very nice purple fermented fruit drink using the same. So you have a little ginger, spiciness to the drink, and you have tanginess to the drink, and it is really nice. So this is a very simple thing which can be done at home. You just have to get the starter ready and use this to ferment other fruits.
Okay.
So you can do fruit juices. I had tried making a fermented drink from butterfly pea flower. So Shanka Pushpa it is called as, and it is supposed to be one of the most important flower for offering to the gods. And almost many of the households here in Karnataka do have the plant and the flowers. So the flower again is a very interesting thing, because when you add it to the water, it gives out a nice bluish color because the flower is very blue in color. But as soon as it becomes acidic, the blue color changes to purple, right? So if you add lemon juice to it or you ferment it with the ginger ale, the blue color will slowly change to a purple colored drink. And that is also very good for health because it is rich in polyphenols. It has minimal amount of sugar in it and loads of lactobacilli organisms, bacteria. So when I have seen the gut reports of so many clients that we have had who have done their gut microbiome testing, the most common, species which are missing are the species belonging to the lactobacilli family. And I feel introducing such ferments, trying to make your own fermented foods can add these important species to the gut, which will make our gut more stronger and ward off the pathogenic organisms and definitely improve your digestion overall. And definitely it has an effect on our mood, our overall health, and so on. So this I think works out really well. Even the kids like it. So I'm very happy that my family has also accepted this as a part of their they consider this as junk because they like it. So I'm happy that they consider it junk, but I know how good it is for their health and for all our health. So this is one thing which I think we should encourage the people to try as well.
I think one of the fermented drinks that you made, that we kind of tested it in the lab, and the top organisms that were there were all lactobacillus.
Absolutely. So they were all probiotics, yes, and a good number of them, which actually encouraged me that I should do more and more ferments like this, because these probiotics, again, as I told, this will be good in the long run, because we don't have to completely depend on taking pills to improve our gut diversity. Through this, we can definitely add more and more organisms to the gut.
Talking about diversity, and again going back to that experiment that we did, or the test that we did on the fermented food that you did, if you look at all the organisms which were at a lower amount, and you just go down the Excel sheet and you look at the organisms, there are a lot of organisms I've never encountered before. And this is a good way of increasing the diversity. So natural fermentation gives you a good mixture. I mean, it gives you the probiotics. And the reason we're calling it probiotics is because there have been 30 organisms that a bunch of scientists got together and classified them as good bacteria. But in my opinion, everything in relative proportion is good. So even trace amounts of other kinds of bacteria that is coming into fermented drinks that's made at home is good, and it's adding diversity to your gut. And not only, I mean, I know Indian fermented foods are good. We've been using it for so many generations. All our grandmothers have been saying, keep overnight rice and have it for morning. It is a good breakfast. We never listened to it when we were young, but now going back and getting all of that done is good. But even with kombucha and kefir, I'll go back to, if you can make it at home, especially kefir is so easy to do. You get kefir grains, and you either add milk or water, milk, water, coconut water also. You add it, let it ferment, and once the first ferment comes, you just make sure that your grains are alive, and you keep fermenting more and more, and it's a good, tasty drink that can be got.
Absolutely, this is like a habit forming. Once you get started with this, there is endless possibilities. You can try with everything and anything, and come up with your own ferments.
Correct. And even with vegetable fermentation that we were talking about, once you start doing it at home and you discover how tasty it is, you'll stop buying pickles from outside.
Absolutely.
And this mango season, I know you've been in Gandhi Bazaar trying to buy mangoes.
Absolutely. That's a place wherein, when you come during that season, where you have different kinds of mangoes, the air is filled with a lot of aroma, and you're like, it's your gut, I think, pushing you towards them and saying that please buy the mangoes and make the pickles. So yes, that's there is one guy who has this cart which is filled with only those vegetables which are used for pickling. So black pepper, and there is some root also which is available. One of my client also mentioned that this root, they use it for making pickles, and whatever the water is left over after they finish consuming that root, they add cucumber to it and pickles further. So a lot of things you learn like this when you go to a marketplace like that. I always feel like instead of doing an online purchase, it is always better to go to a market area where you can find out what are the things you can use, especially for pickling.
I love those small mangoes that you get that is used for pickling. And they run out within 5 or 6 days. It's in such high demand, and usually gets over. I know we've been talking about how to do it at home and all of that, but let's talk a little bit about the clinical experience about all of this. I mean, from patients that we've dealt with, if you could share a few experiences.
Sure. So I had this patient again from Rajasthan. Through him only I came to know something about this kanchi, the vada kanji that they prepare. So this particular patient actually was not aware of how to have a proper diet with the conditions that he had. He was diagnosed with IBS, but nobody actually gave him a proper plan as to what kind of diet needs to be followed. And he had entered into a zone wherein he was finding it very difficult to go out to socialize with the people, with the fear that he might have to rush to the washroom every time. And he had, he was in a very depressed mode. He had no inclination of taking up any new projects if his company had to offer. So a lot of problems that was going through. So we started him on a low FODMAP diet. Slowly, when his gut recovered a bit, that is when we started asking him what kind of fermented foods or what kind of traditional foods is generally prepared in his household. So he got his mother involved. She came to online and had a chat with us where I discussed with her the kind of food that people in Rajasthan generally have. So mostly it is lentil based diet that they have because of the desert area. They do not get a lot of fresh produce. So I encouraged her to do a lot of pickling because when in a particular season they do get some amount of fresh fruits, they usually used to pickle it earlier. Now that science is lost, people don't pickle anymore because you get foods all around the season, right? But I encouraged her to do a lot of pickling, and I told him to start including at least 1 or 2 fermented foods in a week. He started with that, and then he got so addicted to it, and the family got into a habit of making more and more fermented foods, and in the end he actually forgot he had something like IPS. That is what had happened. So he is very free now. He can go around. He says that even though I eat food which is not good for my gut is still able to handle it to some extent, right? So, and he is very happy about it. He said that he himself mentioned that I don't know why we forget about our traditional fermented foods, because it's a very important part of the diet. We get so involved in our day-to-day activities, in our work, in the convenience where we can just order the food and eat, that we have forgotten that there is maybe a slightly longer way of doing things, but that would be a very right way of actually cooking and making stuff at home. So this helped him to kind of reconnect with his culture, and it has helped him to manage his condition up to 90%. So fermented foods has a very important role to play in management of a lot of diseases also. We keep talking a lot about gut health. Now wherever you see on any social media, there are videos and reels on gut health, how to improve gut health and so on. I see very few videos on actual fermented food. We have lots on probiotics, we have lots on prebiotics. People telling, do this lifestyle change, that lifestyle change. But there is very less discussion on the fermented foods and how to do them. I feel when it comes to superfood, although I know there is nothing like superfood here, but when you use that word, I feel it is very synonymous with fermented foods, because I feel fermented foods are the next generation superfoods. That is what is going to give us a lot of health, and that is what is going to make sure that we go to the next level of precision nutrition, and that is going to set up the tone for our future generations also. So that science should never be lost.
Great words, Rohini. And so very, very insightful. And, thank you for sharing this. Yes, fermented food is the next generation superfood. We're taking it from the old generation and making it the next generation superfood. So, thank you so much for the insights.
Thank you for having me, Kumar.
It was, I hope you all enjoyed this conversation. See you next time.